Jack Dorsey going all in on Bitcoin, revealing in a podcast interview that he's maxing out the $10,000 weekly spending limit.
Hey, what is up, guys? Whales are continuing to accumulate more and more Bitcoin, while skeptics continue to criticize Bitcoin and live in denial. In this video, I will take you back to 2013 when Bitcoin was only $100, and we will reflect back how silly those Bitcoin critics were. Also, I will take you to the present time and give you a proof that whales indeed are buying more and more Bitcoin.
They're trying to reinvent the wheel, and they've come up with a flat tire. We already have a perfect real form of money, and it's called gold. Money has to have four elements. It has to be very rare, indestructible, divisible without losing its purchasing power, and cannot be increased by fiat. And Bitcoins fail on the first two. They are not rare, and they are very much destructible.
Had PayPal invented Bitcoin, we'd all be heralding it as the most important financial revolution since the internet, since the credit card, perhaps. And I guess I would say, as for those first 2 points, as to it being destructible and rare, I guess I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, gold is only rare because it's physically scarce, but right. Bitcoin is rare because it counts on the scarcity of CPU time. And so, likewise, as to destructibility, I think that's also sort of in question.
What are the chances of someone coming up with a counterfeit Bitcoin? And they present that to an end user, and they're accepting this phony Bitcoin.
I guess the chances would be astronomically low, and that's the whole design. I mean, the way that you create a Bitcoin is that you basically have to find a larger, rare number, bigger than any of the other Bitcoin out there. And so every Bitcoin, the next Bitcoin is even harder to create. And so I'd say right now it requires vast amounts of CPUs, generally through Amazon Cloud and things like this, to create the next Bitcoin. So it'd be exceedingly impossible or exceedingly difficult to create a counterfeit Bitcoin.
So hacking Bitcoin could be a problem, but what about someone coming up with a counterfeit that end users don't recognize as being counterfeit, and that eroding the purchasing power of all existing Bitcoin?
Yeah, you guys, I guess one of my concerns here too is that, there's a lot of stories about drug dealers using these kind of things, and I think it's just a matter of it's not regulated, it's not controlled.
The whole Bitcoin market is about $1 billion. It's a novelty for the geek squad. I can assure you, if these became well promulgated, that the U.S. government would shut it down.
And just to give our viewers some perspective, there's about $4 trillion in currency trading every day, and as Michael said, it's about $1 billion worth of Bitcoins. It has quintupled in value over the last year. Just since the Cyprus thing came up, it's up over 20%. Over the last month or about a couple months, it's up over 40%. So it's actually getting some visibility out there. Again, you can go online and go to places where Bitcoins are accepted, and there are dozens of places, no websites that you would actually, if I said them, oh yeah, I know that, but it's just going to be very interesting to see just how much this catches on. It just sounds so silly, but maybe it's not.
David, how much of your wealth will you place in Bitcoins? What percentage would you store?
I believe that for any sort of a highly diversified portfolio, something like Bitcoin is going to play an increasing role.
But it could be wiped out in a nano. If it is widely promulgated, and the exponential increase of someone trying to hack it, because there'll be many more people trying to hack it, goes up.
Well, I guess you're assuming that merely that because you can theorize the possibility that's going to happen. I would say
your purchasing power can be wiped out in a nanosecond, and that's why it would never be widely accepted in this country.
I hear you say that, but that doesn't make it true. And I think that there are people who spend a lot of time on this that might know this topic maybe a bit more and who would believe in it.
That's NBC guest looking pretty dumb, saying that we are trying to reinvent the wheel and we came up with a flat tire. Well, tire was not flat at all. If something, that tire was inflated, which popped in late 2017 and more than 80% of the air came out. But since then, tire is being rebuilt and it comes up to be stronger and stronger. Oh my god, did he really say counterfeit Bitcoin? That is probably the funniest joke I ever heard about Bitcoin. Ever. Lacking of understanding about Bitcoin and blockchain technology, he still tried to bash Bitcoin because of his big ego and very closed-minded thought process. If you do not understand it, just don't talk about it. Since then, Bitcoin increased from $100 all the way to the current price of $8,000. That's a 80x return on your investment. If he would invest $1,000, now he would have over $80,000, but the opportunity cost is way too high. Now he's probably sitting home and biting his nails. Okay, enough of that loser. Let's take a look at the present time and see what whales are actually doing. And what they're doing is accumulating huge sums of Bitcoin.
Jack Dorsey going all in on Bitcoin, revealing in a podcast interview that he's maxing out the $10,000 weekly spending limit on Bitcoin established for Square's Cash App. The Twitter and Square CEO also predicting a, quote, massive acceleration for the cryptocurrency. This as Bitcoin was up 11% in February, its first monthly gain since July. It's attempting to climb back to 4,000.
Jack Dorsey is the founder of Twitter and Square. His net worth of over $4 billion. He did not buy Bitcoin at $20,000 in late 2017, when most of the retail speculators were hopping on that bubble. In March of 2019, when Bitcoin was under $4,000, he was maxing out his Square Cash App product and accumulating $10,000 worth of Bitcoin every week. Here is a quick recap of the podcast and what he said about accumulating Bitcoin.
No, it's awesome to see what you guys have rolled out in the last year in particular. It's a favorite app of Tales from the Crypt freaks out there. We started a stacking sats Saturday.
Oh, awesome.
Using everybody buying $25 worth of Bitcoin.
I saw that on Twitter, all the screenshots. I thought that was awesome. I would have participated, but I already exceeded my limit on the Cash App, so I couldn't purchase anymore.
There's always tomorrow. We're going to be doing it tomorrow again.
Tomorrow I probably can. I think we have a limit that rotates every week or so.
Jack Dorsey was not the only one. Number of money managers and other wealthy individuals were accumulating heavily Bitcoin under $4,000. Anthony Pompliano was another investor who was heavily investing in Bitcoin at $3,800. By the way, this is when I bought a Bitcoin as well. I'm not a whale, but in general, I do know when things are cheap and when things get expensive. At $3,800, when Bitcoin dropped more than 80% from its all-time high, that was the time when Bitcoin seems trading at the bargain price.
But you made a price prediction yesterday, and never in my life did I think that Anthony Pompliano would jump into making price predictions. Tell me about this $100,000 price prediction.
Yeah, so look, in August last year, I basically came out and I said, Bitcoin's going to drop about 50% to 3,000, then it'll jump back up over 10. That's played out since August to about end of May, early June.
So you had a lucky call, so?
Well, you could call it luck, right? Or the way that we think about it is we look at the more macro trends, right? So you'll never hear me say, hey, by next week it's going to do X, right? Or look at this chart. We're really, our job as professional money managers when we're investing in these assets is to have price targets, right? And so it's less about saying, I think that it's got to do this to be successful. It's more of, I need to know when am I going to sell? Right, and so we around $3,800 in March of this year put an investment on Bitcoin for the public pensions, and obviously that investment's doing very well. And so we have a price target as to when we think that kind of the longer term horizon is. And what I came out and said was $100,000 by December of 2021, and I think that we're generally headed to much higher highs. And so I felt like it was important to put that on public record.
So you mentioned that you have a price target so that you can know when to sell. Now, I never thought that Anthony Pompliano would ever talk about selling Bitcoin. Always about buying and accumulating. Hypothetically speaking, if Bitcoin goes to $150,000 in 2020, would you sell?
Well, I think it's important to decipher between two things, right? So there's the fund and then there's what I do personally, right? What I do personally is I'm not interested in selling. I store my wealth in Bitcoin. I look at that as a very different scenario than as a professional money manager. My job is to make money for our investors, right? And so obviously in order to make money, we need to sell the position at some point. And so I think that when I'm speaking about selling is on the professional side, managing the money for these institutions. Personally, it's a whole different ballgame.
Here is actual proof that whales are buying more and more Bitcoin. If you look at this chart, the red line represents the number of addresses with 1000 BTC or more, and the gray line is a logarithmic function of the Bitcoin price. 1000 BTC is a lot of money. It would be over $8 million at the current price. Firstly, the number of addresses spiked in the beginning of 2015. It went from 1500 addresses to 1700 addresses. This is when Bitcoin was under $200 a coin. But then as the price of the Bitcoin starts to go up and the number of addresses starts to decrease. And it lasted all the way until late 2017 when Bitcoin reached almost $20,000 a coin. I believe the reason why the number of addresses decreased is because those whales were partially selling Bitcoin at higher and higher prices. But let's take a close look at what exactly happened when Bitcoin dropped from $20,000 to $6,000. This is the price when we see Bitcoin consolidated and moved sideways for quite some time. This is when whales jumped on the bird once again and started to accumulate Bitcoin at $6,000, $1,550 to $1,750, which means 200 more addresses with 1,000 Bitcoin or more were added during that time. But in 2019, when Bitcoin dropped from $6,000 to under $4,000, Bitcoin addresses increased again. It increased to 1,850, adding another 100 addresses. After that, the number of addresses slightly dropped, but then spiked again within a short period of time. This is when Bitcoin was still under $4,000. However, when Bitcoin started to increase and reached this 2019 annual high of close to $14,000, at the same time number of addresses starts to decline. But once Bitcoin dropped to the current price of $8,000 per Bitcoin, number of addresses reached new all-time high, spiking about 2,000 Bitcoin addresses of over 1,000 Bitcoins. Is this a great indicator to accumulate more Bitcoin? Personally, I think so. Let me know what you guys think about whales accumulating Bitcoin. Hit that like button and subscribe.